I'm Communications Director Audrey Barnes, and this is Laurel Community Spotlight. Today's program is all about helping to heal a grieving heart. Annette March Greer is my guest today. She is co-founder of the March Life Tribute Center at 7601 Sandy Spring Road in Laurel. Ms. Greer's work with survivors of grief at Roberta's House in Baltimore has made her get the attention of CNN. She's a top 10 CNN hero, and now she's in the running for CNN Hero of the Year. We'll tell you in just a moment how you can help her achieve that goal. Ms. Greer, thank you so much for being with us today. This is such an important and such a great honor for you to be nominated as one of CNN's top 10 heroes. That's great.
Yes, I'm very humbled and honored that CNN has recognized the work that is so much needed in our communities.
And you beat out thousands of people to make it to the top 10.
Yes, over 10,000 nominations.
That is fantastic.
Yes.
So we want to talk a little bit about how you did get their attention. Your work, you said you grew up in a funeral home, first of all.
Yes, I did. Born and raised, my parents were morticians in Baltimore, and we lived on the second floor of a funeral parlor where my mom and pop ran a funeral home in Baltimore City.
So you experienced grief and how people deal with that pretty early on in your life?
Yes, as a small child, seeing death all the time and seeing grief as an everyday part of life. I don't think it did any harm. I think I grew up pretty healthy and learned to see how we have to adapt to various crises in our lives and adversities. But as I grew older and became a registered nurse, I really began to see the impact of grief in our communities and how we were dealing with grief, and our children weren't being cared for.
And your family, the March family, 60 years in the funeral business, long-standing family business. But it was your own personal tragedy that got you thinking about taking it to the next level. Tell us about that.
Well, in 2006, we lost our matriarch. Our mother died, and she was an icon of compassion in the Baltimore community. Growing up, I watched her often caring for families, dressing and doing the cosmetology for so many of families' loved ones, and she put her heart and soul into it. Our kitchen was a counseling center on many days where families would come back and share their stories with her. Well, in 2006, she died, and I have been running bereavement support groups now for 25 years in the Baltimore region, and felt a calling that it was time now to expand these services into a nonprofit.
And that's how Roberta's House was born.
Yes, that's how Roberta is my mother.
So tell me about the philosophy of Roberta's House. How do you help people deal with their grief?
Well, we created a safe place, which is a center that is located in the heart of East Baltimore, which is an area where there's a lot of violence, crime, and substance abuse. And we provided this safe place, created a nice, warm environment where families can come and meet other families who've experienced a loss of someone close. And we brought on social workers and trained them, and now we have a very comprehensive program that families follow through on a 10-week cycle, learning about their grief, growing through their grief, helping children to identify the changes in their life and how to find hope.
What do you think is the most important piece of your philosophy in helping these families deal with their loss?
Is that everyone has the capability to heal as long as we have the support systems there for us. Everyone is going to experience a relationship that ends in death at some point in life, and that it is not to destroy us, but to make us stronger and to help us to grow.
Do you use volunteers to hold counseling sessions and work with survivors?
We could not do what we do without our volunteers. We have over 200 trained volunteers that work at Roberta's House. We have about 7 different programs, including a summer camp where we take children away for a 3-day weekend adventure camp. And our volunteers come with their experiences, their losses, but with a great sense of hope and love, and are willing to hear the children's stories and the family stories, and to be a support there for them.
Is there one particular success story that you're really proud of, a family that's touched you and made you just proud to be in this business of helping people heal?
There are so many stories that we have that have come out of Roberta's house. But one particular story is a young teenager that experienced the death of her mother in a car accident. And she was about 10 years old when this death occurred. She was then placed in foster care and moved from one family to another, grew up very angry, acting out in many ways in school. And she came to our program called Changing the Game, rejected anyone who really wanted to get close to her because she was so hurt and didn't trust anyone. And through our program now, she has become a peer mentor. She has now graduated from high school, and she is in her first year of college and working part-time. And she still comes to Roberta's house to now help the younger teens who are dealing with so much change in their life. And she has just been a remarkable story.
Well, that is a remarkable story.
Yes.
So we know that you want to expand even further in the Prince George's County, Laurel area. Tell me about your plans for the future.
Well, of course, Prince George's County is very much like Baltimore, one of the highest areas for violent deaths and crime. And we also recognize that there is a great need for children and families in this area to have help in working through especially homicidal deaths. So we recently had a breakfast introducing our program coming in February, that we will create a peer support programs for families who've experienced a homicidal death with children, to bring their children to get help and support. So we're currently looking for a location, and we're working with the Department of Family Services to help us identify that location, and we're also recruiting for volunteers to be trained.
Now, I understand there's also a day of service coming up, isn't there, in January as well?
Yes, right around the Martin Luther King birthday holiday. So we will have our volunteer training begin on January the 16th. It is a 26-hour training that volunteers must go through. And that training involves communication skills, listening skills, the 4 tasks of grief, which is one of the theories of William Borden, understanding the impact of death and the various types of losses. So it is a very comprehensive training program, and we're looking for volunteers. That training takes place on January the 16th.
All right, so now we get to talk about the fun stuff. How can we help you become CNN's Hero of the Year? Tell us about the voting, and are you getting excited about the prospect of being a nationwide hero for the work that you're doing?
It's really amazing and honorable that CNN recognizes the importance of children and helping children to work through their grief and loss. This is really nationwide. And I think it's really going to open the eyes and minds of various foundations and corporations that grief is really connected to our violence and crime in our communities. And we have to have this discussion. So there's a voting process now between now and November 16th. We can vote every day. I encourage you to vote every day, cnnheroes.com. For as many emails as that you might have for Roberta's house.
All right. Well, we will have our fingers crossed for Miss Annette March Greer, that you can become CNN's Hero of the Year. We're so proud to have the March Life Tribute Center here in Laurel, which is an offshoot of the work that your family has done with healing families over the years. Thank you so much for coming in today and talking with us about it.
And thank you for having me.
All right. We'll have our fingers crossed, and we will vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Once again, if you would like to help Miss Annette March Greer become CNN's Hero of the Year, here's what you do. Log on to cnnheroes.com. You can vote once a day, every day, until November 16th. That's all you have to do. And well, that does it for this edition of Laurel Community Spotlight. I'm Audrey Barnes. We'll see you next time.